One thing that I've struggled with and continue to struggle with is learning how to let go and trust in God's will for my life. I mean, I can pray to God and say, may your will be done. I have uttered the phrase, may God's will be done, countless times. But I've come to realize that learning how to understand what this actually means and going on to trust it, especially when everything around me seems to be telling a different story from what I'm praying for or what I hope for, is such a difficult journey. And it's a journey that I must admit I'm still navigating and trying to find my way through. Because if truth be told, I find it easier to follow what I can see. My will feels much easier because it's predictable, I can easily understand it, and for the most part, I feel somewhat in control. When I look back over my life, I see patterns and cycles of me chasing after what I think I can control. You know, things like money, routine, knowledge, social status, and even relationships. And while a lot of it has seemed exciting and has felt at times like success, I must admit that none of it has ever really been able to truly satisfy me. I mean, I found that I can will myself to bed, but not to sleep, let alone to true rest. I can force myself into silence, but I can't will myself to peace. I can walk around faking to be fine, or I can pretend to be okay, but still feel empty inside. In wrestling with my struggle between my will and the will of God, I was led to Genesis 1 verse 1. And this is a verse that I know is quite common, and I also grew up reciting it without really giving much thought to whether there was anything deeper in meaning beyond what it states, that in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. But I've come to learn that the very first sentence in the Bible contains the blueprint for my identity, my purpose, and it carries the very nature of the God who has been chasing after my heart from the very start. Genesis 1 verse 1 says, in the beginning God, Elohim, created or formed out of nothing the heavens and the earth. Just like that. No raw materials, no help, just God. That's a powerful statement. Upon digging just a little deeper into the context and the language used there, I learned that the phrase in the beginning doesn't just imply a point in time. It actually refers to a foundational moment, a commencement, the start or the very first movement of divine intention. This is not just the beginning of time. It also declares, or it's a declaration that God stood outside of time and initiated it for His purpose. It further brings to the fore God's will as revealed by His character. It reveals a God who creates out of nothing, a God who speaks, and what didn't exist before suddenly is, a God who brings substance out of emptiness. And that's the very same God who keeps asking me to trust Him. This verse teaches me that Genesis isn't just about the beginning of the universe. It's about my own beginning, my Genesis. It's about my foundation, my purpose. It's about how I came from a God who makes everything with purpose. The word created here is used in a manner that is only applicable uniquely and exclusively to God. It is never used for human action. It speaks of God's ability to create out of absolute nothingness. This speaks of God's sovereign creative authority, how He speaks something out of nothing with divine intention. And so to me, this reveals that He created me on purpose, for purpose. He didn't need expensive raw materials, neither did He need the perfect circumstances. He's a God who simply speaks and it is. He's the initiator of everything, the master designer, and the redeemer of all broken beginnings. This verse gives me the hope that this God who created the universe can rebuild my life even when it feels like it's been burnt to ashes. And so if that's who He is, the kind of God who can bring beauty from void, who can bring light from darkness and can bring order from chaos, then it begins to make sense that perhaps I should trust Him. That even when I don't see the path, when what's visible and what's humanly logical is screaming louder than what I hope for, I should continue to trust Him, even when I feel like there's nothing doing, because that's what He works best with. Nothingness. Nothing is not the end for Him. Nothing is His starting point. So even if your life feels like it's chaotic or it's a mess right now, Genesis 1 verse 1 whispers this hope that the God who formed the galaxies can reshape your life from the mess. Genesis 1 verse 1 tells me that even when I feel empty, I should invite God into that emptiness. Genesis 1 verse 1 isn't just about how it all began, but it's actually where my restoration begins. And so I have to concede that if my will was capable of fixing anything in my life, it would have done so already. So maybe my tiredness and my weariness, while it may not necessarily suggest that I have failed, is teaching me that perhaps I've been struggling with trying to do things that only God can do for me. So now I'm learning that even in times when God's will doesn't necessarily feel like what's best, it remains the best. Because He is good, He is the best, and His will is a reflection of His character. And so the more I learn of His character, the better I'll come to understand and appreciate His will. This will make it easier for me to follow Him even when I lack, because He is a God who doesn't lack anything. I mean, this is a God who created the heavens and the earth out of nothing. So surely He can create peace within me. Surely He can create wholeness in me. Surely He can speak over my life, and things that I never thought possible can begin to take shape.